So guys, El-Rufai has had his own fair share of the Tinubu's government as people who were said to have been sponsored by the government of the day, went into the venue where El-Rufai was conducting a coalition meeting with his members and they disrupted the whole meeting. I mean, some people even got injured and all that. El-Rufai has reacted to that. He said the government he helped to bring in is now the one going after him. I'm going to allow you to take a look at the video where El-Rufai reacted, and I'm also going to allow you listen to what Mr. Dele Farotimi said about Tinubu. Don't forget that the Tinubu's government is working hard to win the election before the election even happens. I mean, you must have heard that the registration done by INEC is being questioned as numerous registration is coming from the southwest alone, mostly the southwest, while other states like the southeastern states, are left far behind. The ADC is raising alarm, and I'm also using this opportunity to tell P2B supporters, hey, please don't leave this thing for just the ADC. You guys should be calling out the government of the day. You must have seen what is happening in Rivers State or what happened in Rivers State yesterday. Guess what? The local government election that was held, people were seen, thumb printing and stamping on the ballot sheets. Just local government election. They are the ones in charge. The sole administrator is in charge. Still, they can't do transparent election. Fubara and his supporters decided to stay away from the election. So this election is being spearheaded by those supporting Wike and Tinubu, and still they couldn't be transparent even within themselves. Videos circulating where they were thumb printing and stamping ballot sheets and all that. Anyway, guys, back to El-Rufai. El-Rufai has received his own fair share of the Tinubu's government because guess what? Tinubu doesn't want anybody to stand on his way. The APC has nothing to campaign upon. They feel they are going to get back to Aso Rock by fire by force. Now take your time, watch these video clips and let me know your honest reaction in the comment section below. Now take a look.
The event was organized for the inauguration of members of various political parties into the ADC Transition Committee, but midway, thugs invaded the venue, unleashing violence that left several people assaulted and property destroyed. Although the inauguration eventually continued, one of the victims of the assault, Ibrahim Modibo, narrated his ordeal, describing how the thug unleashed violence on innocent party members.
If someone is coming with cutlass and breaking windows, what are you supposed to do as a police officer? Does police have cutlass? It's rifle and he's supposed to shoot. They are there to protect lives and property.
Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai and the ADC National Vice Chairman Northwest Zone, Jafar Sani, alleged that the ruling party orchestrated the attack, accusing security operatives of complacency for not protecting members carrying out what he described as a constitutionally guaranteed activity.
It's most unfortunate that this is a government that I had a hand in bringing about. I'm quite disappointed and disgusted by this. And but if the authorities don't take decisive action to end this reintroduction of thuggery into Kaduna politics, well, God help us, because nobody has monopoly of violence, nobody has monopoly of thugs.
When a lawbreaker, breaks the law in the presence of a law enforcement agent, and the person just stood aloof, I don't know what to call that.
Bola Tinubu.
Who is named that?
Bola Tinubu.
I really don't know who that is, but I do know there is a man who calls himself Bola Tinubu, and I doubt that I can find accommodation in the same space with such a man.
What about Atiku Abubakar?
Yak. That's the past.
Are those eminently qualified Nigerians?
No, I don't believe they are.
Why?
Because their record in public office does not suggest that they should be trusted with public office again.
But Bola Tinubu claims he served Lagos and he did well. He's the father of modern Lagos. Atiku Abubakar was former vice president in this country.
You would have made an excellent attorney to fight, but the truth is this. No matter how many times Bola Tinubu might care to repeat that lie that he built Lagos, it doesn't make it the truth. The reality on the ground is that the man built a Lagos where there is no hospital fit for him to use. He has built a Lagos where I doubt there is anybody in this building who sends their children to a school. that he has built. So what Lagos did he build? The same one where people are spending 3-4 hours to get to work in the morning, another 3-4 hours to get to work in the evening.
But they said they built a blue rail.
What blue rail? For 16 years?
All
16 years to build how many kilometers of rail? At what cost? Look, the reality is that when a lie travels for as long as the Bola Tinubu lies and myths have traveled, eventually it must fall flat. And those lies have come to their end. You build the blue rail for 16 years. At what cost? How many years have they been building the Fourth Mainland Bridge? At what cost? Lekki Koi Bridge. At what cost? How many years did they toll it for? Lekki Ekpe Expressway. They've been building it for the last 16 years. They've not finished building it. In different sections of that road, yeah, it's already failing. We've been subjected to horrendous traffic on that. Look, when we're already speaking to the people. He can say, if I built the moon, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be no Lagos. It would have been a creek.
Mr. Faratimi, just as a ramp.
I have told anybody who care to listen that APC is planning to rig election, not to win, because they have nothing to campaign with. Nothing. So it's better we tell them now that, look, this your winning streak. We are going to interrogate it in 2027. I want to see how Nigerians can be so docile to allow suffering into their life. I want to see how Nigerians will allow failure into their life. So Tinubu should do a free and fair election in 2027 so that we know whether Nigerians actually wanted him or he using another means to win election. That's what we are saying. So Daddy, please let that statement go around. Tell it to every day. All the opposition should be saying it loud and clear. This should be their slogan from now. Let them say it louder.
Because a lot of people are also saying, let's fact check. They said in his speech while in the university, he said in his time there were no strikes. And a lot of people said, oh, while Obi was still in school, that you have had the Ali Must Go riots, you know, that had segued into a lot of things. And how is he going to end the incessant strikes that pretty much have dogged our university system since the 80s? Or some people like to count the first official strike from the late 80s, you know, the Babangida debacle up till now. So those are two things to put forward there. You know, we weigh all sides of the conversation.
No.
Yeah.
It's only right that journalists should ask questions.
Yeah.
And it is only proper that society should be informed by the questions and the answers that will be provided by the candidates or anyone who is looking for political office. So these questions are right, and they should be asked. To answer the question related to fact-checking, I don't understand what universe some people live in. But I grew up in Ibadan, and one of the areas where I grew up in Ibadan was the University of Ibadan. I went to Abadina Primary School in Europe.
Great Abadina.
Yes. And I lived across the road from the campus at Olorogun Junction. So I can speak to an extent about the university system that must have nurtured Peter Gregory Obi. When he said there were no strikes in his days, I would say that that is factually correct. Factually correct because strikes were few and far between, and the Ali Must Go to which they refer wasn't an ASU strike. It wasn't the academics on strike, as far as I can remember. It was a student strike. And as at that time, the Nigerian state responded to that strike exactly as it has always responded to every challenge to its autocracy. It killed, it murdered. My first contact with the Nigerian state was during the Ali Must Go riot, and it was me sniffing tear gas. So when they speak about strikes in the 70s, particularly in the 70s and the 80s, they speak ignorantly, because we're talking about a situation today where students are at home for upward of 9 months. We're talking about a situation today where the universities are functionally higher secondary schools, if the truth be told. So if they should not be comparing apples and oranges, compare apples and apples. When Gregory Peter Obi said there were no strikes in his days, he is completely correct, and I stand by that. There is nowhere in the world where you will not have industrial disagreements. But nothing of the sort that we are having today. If it was in those days that somebody would dare to go on strike and shut down the universities for a month, this country would have been grounded to a halt. Even in my own days in the universities in the 90s, this level of nonsense would not have been tolerated and allowed to become normal in our space. So let them not be speaking to that. And there was something you said in your intro that Peter Obi claimed that the university system more or less like destroyed. That's not a claim. That's a fact. There is nowhere in the world where people understand the fact that education is an investment in the future of that country and in the youth of that country, where something as intolerable as 9 months closure, and that is normal because the children of everyone making the policies, including myself, our children are not in the Nigerian universities. It is the poor who send their children to Nigerian universities and nobody cares about them anymore. If I had been born in this generation, I would never have entered the 4 walls of a university. And I met the rump of the destroyed university system. So when he said, it's not a claim, it is a fact. But the unfortunate thing is that that is not confined to the educational sector. We're not dealing with sectoral failures in Nigeria any longer. We're dealing with systemic collapse. That is the reality that is staring us in the face. We keep using all these euphemisms in place of the real words that should communicate the reality of our situation. The educational system is completely unfit for purpose. The reality is you actually have to retrain, reorient. It's not just the educational system. We can have these farcical gyrations about sectoral failures, or we can look at our abject nudity in the mirror that is before us and admit to the fact that the system has collapsed. So it's not a claim, it's a fact.
So how will he prevent this that have been going on for a while?
No,
strikes.
Look,
how will he stop? Because he made a promise that he's going to stop strikes.
It's a simple enough thing. It's a simple enough thing. And I'll take it from the macro level. If you, as a parent, as a husband, opens up the finances of the home to the point where there are no opacity, nobody is wondering what might be hidden under the table somewhere, is not like you have prioritized the well-being of the rulers whilst ignoring the welfare of the citizens who are non-existent in the current reality. If you open up the books, if the people understand that this is what the government has, and you prioritize based on the needs and the vision that you have for the future, nobody is going to demand that you should bring what you do not have.
Okay, so on the subject of money, which was what I was going to actually start with, education financing is huge. This present administration for the 2023 budget allocated 1.79 trillion to education, the second largest after defense and security. And very good, compared to the last. It still falls way below the United Nations recommendation of 26% of the budget. This was 8.2% of the entire budget. It is expensive to fund education. In fact, one of the main reasons for the strikes you're talking about in terms of preventing the strikes was more funding, ASU's agitation for more funding for universities, and also a review of salaries of lecturers. And the federal government is saying there's no money. And if your candidate does become president, he's going to be dealing with the repayment of 77 trillion naira loan. Where will he get the money to actualize this statement that he's made as to no strikes if he does become president?
You see, I am of the firm opinion that openness in governance is the first antidote to strife in the populace. When the populace have a clear understanding of exactly what the government is doing at any point in time, what are the financial resources available to the government, and how are these financial resources deployed? These are the reasons why the industrial actions either fizzle out or persist. That is one. When you look at our educational system, just as with every other sector of our national life, the reality, and I've said this way too often, but it bears repetition again, it has been destroyed almost beyond repair. You actually have to reimagine it. And in our educational sector, we would actually have no choice but to reimagine it. we have to ask ourselves exactly what is the purpose of education in the digital age. Exactly where are we preparing our children to go? Are we raising back into antiquity, or are we looking to catch up and bridge the gap that already exists? However much might have been voted to education, if you are still putting, for as long as you keep pouring water into a basket, no matter how much effort you put into your water fetching activity, the basket will not get filled up. We're dealing with a system that is patently unfit for purpose, riddled with corruption, and definitely not serving the future needs of the Nigerian people and the state itself. So first thing first, you need to take a look at our educational system. I'm in the construction industry to an extent, and I've been tangentially there for about the last 25 or so years, where I've serviced the real estate industry. And what I can tell you is this. In all of that time, 90% of the artisan class that works in construction in Lagos, don't let me generalize and say Nigeria, in Lagos, 90%, if not more, of the artisan class, from bricklayer to carpenters to tilers, name plasterers, they are either from Ghana or from Togo or from the Benin Republic. Now, you might wonder, what does this have to do with education? That is part of the problem we have evolved for ourselves as a people. We've trained people who go to university to learn philosophy, to learn IRK, big Bible knowledge, but we don't have the capacity to train those who build nations. We cannot have engineers. It pains me when I look on our street, I see road constructions, I'm seeing third-grade expatriates brought from, as long as the skin is white, he is able to do the job, and yet we have engineers graduating all over the place and we have unemployment. These are the real issues that we would have to deal with. Take another look at our educational system. Why are we graduating illiterates, certificated idiots? I'm sorry to say, pardon my French, but the reality is that we are graduating people who do not have the capacity to deduce logically, and who have been, in fact, what you have had, actually, if the truth be told, is a situation where the state has enabled weaponized ignorance. You are teaching people to be ignorant by the time they graduate, so that you are able to dictate terms to them. Financing of education is not a cost, it's an investment. When governments see it as an investment, it means that they can anchor their vision for the future to whatever they are doing in the educational sector. When I was in school, we had woodwork workshops, there were metalworks workshops. What has happened to all of those? There were technical colleges. What has happened to them? What has happened to them? Cobblestone roads, we can't even build. That is 18th century technology. We cannot. Okay, thank you very much. I stand to be corrected. But the fact remains that we have built a system that is patently unfit for purpose. So whatever else Mr. Peter Gregory Obi might do or not do, we must understand that the cornerstone of whatever he's going to do will be openness, so that the people understand exactly where we are, connect the people to the vision for that policy, because it's not just about education. We have systemic collapse. That's what we are facing.
Okay. Can the government honestly, and is this part of your plan, because I read your manifesto and I didn't see anything extensive, can the government honestly still fund university education in this country?
Now, let me say this.
And how much do you think it's going to cost? Have you been able to cost it in your plan?
Rufai, if anybody is telling you they have an exact idea of what they are going to find after the ruinous years of General Buhari and the APC, they will be lying to you. The only thing anyone can give you at this point are broad outlines, and then their own integrity behind a plan to do better. What we see today is a situation where, whether we like it or not, government on its own cannot and should not be funding university education. This is my belief. I don't know what the obedient policy will be by the time they look at the realities, but I personally believe that the government should not be the exclusive funders of universities. This is without prejudice to the fact that there should be availability of students' loan. This is also without prejudice to the fact that there should be scholarships and interventionist funding for less privileged persons who are going to be attending those schools. And in any case, if you check out the costs that the country is already incurring educating Nigerians outside of Nigeria who are largely lost to Nigeria by the time they are done with their education, you will realize that we would actually be subsidizing our own stupidity if we make sure that the government adequately funds education, whether that be by taxing us properly, whether that be by them stopping the leakages and the wastages that has overtaken our land. But education is an investment in the future.
All right. Okay, I just want to jump on that because whilst we're still speaking on education and you mentioned student loan, I was going to ask you a question around that because the presidential candidate of the APC had talked about that and it come under a lot of scrutiny in terms of offering student loan to university students. The big question, of course, like I mentioned, and it's as if I keep talking about money, but because money is now a big deal for us in Nigeria because we have a revenue problem. So let me ask you, since you're saying that you'll be opting for and you're pushing for student loan scholarships, where would the funding for the student loan come from? Bearing in mind that in more prosperous nations like the US, the United Kingdom, where they offer student loans, it's still problematic for the students themselves in terms of repayment of these loans and not defaulting. So number one, where's the money going to come from? How are we going to fund it? And how do we secure the loans such that they'd be paid back to fund the next generation of students? That's on one side. Then in terms of the tertiary funding by tertiary tax, in the new Finance Act, they're proposing to raise the tertiary tax for private organizations. And this is, being kicked again because they say that they are overburdened with tax. Are you pushing? Are you saying that if your government, if Mr. Peter Obi does become president, this is going to be the policy? You'll stand by the increased tax rate for private organizations for tertiary?
Well, let me first of all clear something up. Like I've said earlier, compare apples with apples. When Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu speaks to student loans or anything, you've got to take that with a bucket of salt because the words and the actions really match up. This is the same person who sold us the dummy that is currently sat in front of everybody and that we've had to deal with for the last 7.5 years. So anything he says...
So I just like you to... I mean, it's...
No, where you say, no, you can be sold a dummy.
Okay. I'm
saying that we were sold a dummy in 2015. And Mr. Buhari is sat in the presidency today, mostly by the grace of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. No matter how far he wishes to distance himself, he has even promised to run on the record and to continue the legacy of 9 months closure. So when he speaks to student loans and people necessarily question his sincerity, there is a basis. But when Mr. Peter Obi speaks, if he speaks to student loan, which I haven't said he spoke to, I said that is my own view. I am of the opinion that if you are going to properly fund education, you must also understand that all the funding is not going to come from government because they are still going to fund several other services. But if the people sees that the major line cost in governance is not the maintenance of legislators, governors, their spouses, their wives, is not about retinue of aides and all of that. If we can cut the waste in governance, you would have a whole lot of money coming from that to fund education and all the other social programs that are desired. As I have pointed out, it is almost impossible to speak with any credibility as to the finances of the Nigerian state today. Our central bank governor is nowhere to be found. The figures that he has put out are being questioned left and right. Nobody knows what is going on until anybody gets into power. So the second leg of your question is as it relates to education tax and all the other taxes that have been placed in the fiscal bill. It is right that corporations should kick as they are kicking. Because if all you ever do is to keep taking from me, spend irresponsibly, and then you keep insisting that I continue to subsidize the cost of governance stupidity, then I have a right to demand that I be treated more fairly. If you are asking people to tighten their belts, and your own belt is getting looser by the day, and I run At least once upon a time, I ran some businesses, and I know that the biggest problem in the Nigerian space is the Nigerian government. Your interventions are, every time you come across the Nigerian government in your daily dealings, it occasions pain. So if somebody who is already battling the cost of energy, who is battling the cost of insecurity, who is battling the cost of human resources, as in real time, there is serious drainage in banks, in insurance companies, they are hemorrhaging good stuff. This country is bleeding its citizens out. We're going to Canada, New Zealand, everywhere but Nigeria. And then you are now bringing this additional cost. You say you are spending it on education. The same educational sector where you've already done a whole lot of inequities and that is already perpetually in turmoil. The spend is not correlative with the result. So they have a right to complain.
Okay, so I don't want us to even talk student loans, okay, because it's very dirty talking about it. When you check historically, we had a decree number 25 for the Student Loan Board on the 1st of September 1971 under Yakubu Gowon. So we've tried this rigmarole before. So when people come out and promise it, it sounds like a stupid argument to me, because we've had a decree put out there, but nothing was done. Let's talk about funding. And that's why I'm going to ask you again, what methods? Because you see, we keep talking about university autonomy, and the argument during these 8 months ASUU strike is that the university is autonomous already. Each university has a senate, has its own board that makes money, that generate revenue. But the question is, can the tuition fees be increased to be able to make each university totally autonomous and to be able to feed in the bill? Because that's why I also ask you again, what are the costs on ground now that the government even spends on university education? You talked about over 1 trillion in the budget. What goes to university education in that? And the second question for me would be, the most important thrust of this education chain is primary and secondary education. As it is today, most Nigerians don't complete primary school. Primary school enrollment is dropping by the day. There was supposed to be a buffer for school feeding program to increase primary school enrollment, but we don't see how well that has worked. So what is your OB that you're supporting going to do about primary school and tertiary education and the full autonomy of university education? Because if you give the university autonomy, people have argued, they can raise their money and run their university themselves, but tuition fee has to go up.
Well, you see, one of the biggest problems or challenges that we face is that we always have to compartmentalize Nigeria and then discuss sectors as though it were only those sectors that are afflicted by what we want to discuss. But the unfortunate reality is that that is not so. That a decree was declared in 1971 and has been observed more in breach, speaks to our problems. So we are not here because there is a paucity of laws. If anything, we have way too many laws. We are here because the goodwill to follow through on lofty ideals are never there. I have said again, because I have to be careful because I'm not speaking for Dele Farotimi. The question you have asked of me is essentially one for Mr. Gregory Obi and his administration. But what I do know is this. In a place that is governed by goodwill, that is governed by reason, nobody should need to be told that we are in a state of emergency, not just in the educational sector. Yes, I understand that we have to talk about education as though health, security, every other thing has not collapsed. But the education sector, as we have said, is an investment in the future, so it becomes an urgent issue. Now, if it is an urgent issue and everybody are not connected to it, it becomes almost impossible for it to be resolved. What I'm saying is that Mr. Peter Gregory Obi and all those associated with his campaign and seeking his mandate have a clear understanding of the fact that we are in a state of imminent collapse. Education is one of those things that would definitely receive multi-sectoral attention when the time comes. the fact that you've already referred to the moribundness of discussing student loans because of the fact that it's not like we don't have a law, but it's become something that we've discarded, tells you that if I sat down here and I was telling you, even though I've not been told to say so, that, oh, there will be a student loans board better administered, based on what law? There is already one that is not being obeyed. For all I know, a look at these might suffice. It might very well be that it's one of those laws that have been saved and remains part of our extant laws. I'm not sure. I don't know if you're a lawyer. I'm a lawyer and I'm careful about accepting that a law is still valid because for all I know, it might have been abrogated because it's a decree as well. So I really don't know. But I do know that even countries better endowed than us find ways to offer succor to students who might be unable to afford certain levels of education on their own and that the state is unwilling or unable to cover. However, you can construct a better system if you are willing to learn from the mistakes of others. That Americans have done it and is still there means that it's working to an extent. That it's got a problem like defaults and all of that does not mean that it can't be tweaked. If the American one is not working, what is happening with the Danish ones? Are the Norwegian ones working? What's happening in South Africa? Are they coping in Ghana? What's happening in Tanzania? We look at what is happening everywhere else and then come up with something better for ourselves. The only reason you have examples is so that you can eclectize, learn from it, build something better.
All right, okay, let's move away from education for a few minutes as we talk about the arrest of a former, the immediate past Director General of the Obidati Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Doyin Okupe. He was on his way to London. According to him, he was going for medical checkup. And at the airport, Murtala Mohammed Airport Terminal 1, he was arrested by the DSS, the secret police. And they said he was on the watch list. And this was masterminded by the EFCC. Now they've released him saying that it was erroneous as it was because they forgot to take off his name from the watch list, or they didn't take off his name from the watch list following the his breach of the Money Laundering Act conviction, which he paid a fine in lieu of custodial sentence. I'd like you to speak, your take on this. What is the LP's position on this, being the fact that he's a chieftain of your party? Well,
I'll give you the LP's position. And then perhaps, because I think for the party is just yet more evidence of perhaps the inefficiency of the security system. Because if you had a man on your watch list and he's not particularly an unknown person, and then the time had come to remove him from your watch list, but you still kept him on your watch list, and then you had to go through the embarrassment of apologizing for wrongful arrest and all of that, it is suggestive of the capacities of our DSS. That the same DSS is too busy to chase after the real terrorists, but has time to be chasing after somebody he had no business with. It does not even bear commenting on, but I would hate to believe that it was a partisan thing. I would prefer to treat it as just another evidence of security collapse, perhaps, another example of the inefficiency of our security services, because what's the point? They just merely embarrass themselves and nobody else. But all is well that ends well. And he wasn't going for a checkup, I remember. It was for treatment. He was going to be treated for something or the other. But
yes, his lawyer had actually put up a statement that his health was being impacted and they should allow him passage to travel.
Okay, there are many things you have to react to. There's another story that's been brewing that a lot of people are talking about. This next international wind-up in the UK that they just saw. I mean, you have a right to react. It's politics season. Yeah, so react to it.
When Peter Obi said, go and verify, he did not say go and falsify. What they have done is despicable in the extreme. A man resigned from the company, immediately he became governor. The wife was running the business. And then they voluntarily placed in a winding up notice. And at the maturation of the notice, it was effected. It wasn't them striking the company off the road. The company itself wound up its businesses in the UK. It was not even tangentially connected to either bankruptcy or insolvency or anything of the sort. But like I have said, when they can't tell you anything about themselves, they must invent mock about the person everybody is talking about. Peter Obi is good market, so they can continue. The only thing that is bad in politics is not to be talked about, that they can't find anything of substance but have to begin to invent, says everything.
Let's quickly talk alliances. We're hearing that most big political parties are making alliances with smaller parties. Who is the Labour Party talking to?
The Nigerian people. Look, we're talking to the Nigerian people.
Other political, what's this alliance, the alliance with Kwankwaso? Is there any inroad on that?
Like I said, we are talking to the Nigerian people. The Nigerian people are the ones who will vote in this election. Not big men, not alliances. Alliances help. And we have never foreclosed having alliances with anyone who is also looking to talk to the Nigerian people.
Are you still talking to NPP?
I cannot speak to that because I am not party to any such discussion, but I can also not rule it out. I know we wouldn't be talking to the PDP, and we certainly wouldn't be speaking with the APC. But I would not be surprised if any such discussions might be ongoing. But in all honesty, I can't speak to it because I don't know.
Line open to speak.
I honestly cannot speak to that. You know me enough to know that if I know, I'll tell you I know. But you already know I'm a hot fellow amongst politicians. So when those kind of discussions might be going on, I doubt that anybody will remember to call Dele Faro to me to come and sit in those discussions. But I do know that we keep speaking to the Nigerian people, and Mr. Kwankwaso is an eminently qualified Nigerian. If the opportunity exists...
Is it Bola Tinubu an eminently qualified Nigerian?
Who is that?
Bola Tinubu.
Who is named that?
Bola Tinubu.
I really don't know who that is, but I do know there is a man who calls himself Bola Tinubu, and I doubt that I can find accommodation in the same space with such a man.
What about Atiku Abubakar?
Yuck. That's the past.
Are those eminently qualified Nigerians?
No, I don't believe they are.
Why?
Because their record in public office does not suggest that they should be trusted with public office again.
But Bola Tinubu claims he served Lagos and he did well. He's the father of modern Lagos. Atiku Abubakar was former vice president in this country.
You would have made an excellent attorney, Rufai, but the truth is this. No matter how many times Bola Tinubu might care to repeat that lie that he built Lagos, it doesn't make it the truth. The reality on the ground is that the man built a Lagos where there is no hospital fit for him to use. He has built a Lagos where I doubt there is anybody in this building who sends their children to a school that he has built. So what Lagos did he build? The same one where people are spending 3-4 hours to get to work in the morning, another 3-4 hours to get to work in the evening.
But they said they built a blue rail.
What blue rail? For 16 years?
All
16 years to build how many kilometers of rail? At what cost? Look, the reality is that when a lie travels for as long as the Bola Tinubu lies and myths have traveled, eventually it must fall flat. And those lies have come to their end. You build the blue rail for 16 years. At what cost? How many years have they been building the Fourth Mainland Bridge? At what cost? Lekki Koi Bridge. At what cost? How many years did they toll it for? Lekki Ekpe Expressway. They've been building it for the last 16 years. They've not finished building it. In different sections of that road, it's already failing. We've been subjected to horrendous traffic on that. Look, when we're already speaking to the people. He can say, if he built the moon, if it wasn't for him, there wouldn't be no Lagos. It would have been a creek.
Mr. Faratimi, just as we round off this conversation, I'd like you to speak from your party's perspective, assessing INEC's readiness for the elections. There have been some concerns around vote buying, around underage voting, around discrimination in issuing PVCs in some parts of the country. There have been some concerns. Yesterday we had Chima Christian talk about the integrity of BVAS and the electronic equipment used by INEC in this election. I'd like you to speak from your party's perspective. How confident are you in INEC as we approach elections?
It's been a mixed bag. It's been a mixed bag because where we've had good reports related to PVC collections in some parts, we've also had rather poor reports and then discriminatory issuance of cards based on ethnicity in some parts. So it's not been particularly smooth sailing, but that's as relates to PVC. When it now comes to the election integrity itself, what I can say is this. The new electoral law, if followed, offers a way to credible election. But the beavers and the entire system would be operated by Nigerians like me and you. If they elect to compromise that system, the system will be compromised. But it will be compromised and we would all suffer the consequences. The best that we can look for is that they will find a way to compromise it and find a way to pacify the people. But then we would all still bear the consequences together. So what we can say, and what I am saying personally is, INEC can be better than they have been, and there is vast room for improvement. Whether they will compromise the system or not is a matter of evidence. When the time comes, we will see it. But we have a system that is designed to checkmate vote buying, because if you are buying, there is a presumption that you are seeing the product. And the law says that there must be cathedral privacy within the voting booth, which means that is the confessional is between you and your God. Your choice is between you and God. It means that nobody, no party agent must be able to see your ballot. It also says that you should not take a recording device into that booth. So if the person paying for the vote decides to pay what we call Uwomogo on the street, that is up to him, provided the INEC does his own job and provided that the security agents perform as they are expected to perform. So the human elements are the ones that we need to worry about. The system as designed, if allowed to work,
it was announced that
provide credible results.
El-Rufai.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Delifaro Timi, spokesperson for the Obi Dati Presidential Campaign Council. It's been good having this conversation with you.
Now let's see what the Nigerians see, because from the look of things, Tinubu does not have anything to campaign with, and they feel is going to be by force. You know, they have succeeded in getting INEC to start giving, apportioning more pre-registration of voters, you know, to the Southwest. It's all about rigging, and that's why people, when you see something, say something, go to the social media, react to posts, comment, share, and all that. This is how this information disseminates. You cannot just sit down and watch things get destroyed, because see, this country must be rescued. Now, this person say APC is a terrorist organization. After El-Rufai was attacked, these are some of the reactions. This person say Tinubu will give them a taste of their own medicine. Another person say Nigeria, things. It be like say, now testing the mic ahead of 2027 be this one. So it's going to be very hard. This person is a terrorist organization. Another person is Tinubu and APC. We see on a handwork. Another person say, can government sponsor talk to destroy and disorganize something? Niger. Another person say, which one is government sponsored? Okay, you don't know which one is government sponsored. This person say, terrorist organization is in charge. This one says zoo. Another person say, just the beginning. It will go round. This person say, do people still oppose Canada for calling that party a terrorist organization? This person say, if you sow fireworks, you will definitely reap a whirlwind of fury fire. Violence begat violence. Nevertheless, this should not exist in our political atmosphere in the 21st century. It's barbaric. So another person said, Yariba people teaching every part of Nigeria how to do thuggery and hoodlumism. These are Yariba trademarks. The another person said, dear Rain or Mockery, you told us 3 days Kaduna was bandit free and safe for citizens. Hope you can see your premium fooling now. Another person said, Nigeria and their backward politics of mediocrity and impoverishment. A nation filled with accursed politicians with retrogression, mental and retrogressive mentality and psyche. Leaders with impoverished mindset, wasting our wealth, empty barrels, struggling to maintain power. Wow, this person went so far. Another person here said, no one wastes their vote. No one should waste their vote in 2027 without electoral reform with clear penalties for, among others, intimidations, the obstructions of voters, and otherwise. Forget it. Tinubu and APC won't play fair. I think this makes sense. Nigerians, please join Peter for Nigeria. We want to see people who are collaborating with Peter for Nigeria, calling for this reform. Nigerians, obedience. It won't work if we are just go and register, go and vote. Which vote is going to count? There must be a glitch. There must be a glitch. So we need reforms that will address all these issues. But guess what? Tinubu will not do it because Buhari didn't do it. But we have to insist. This person said, I'm not really a fan of El-Rufai, but to be honest, he doesn't deserve this from Obasani. This person said, APC is a terrorist party. Another person said, oh my God. When you attack back. Enough of victim card. APC is not the only mad party. If Nigerians are not ready to rise up against these rogues, we should as well stop complaining and crying. Hey, this person, if they attack you, attack them back. You know, these guys say attack them, not to do meeting as Nigerians or what. Whatever is happening, I blame the Nigerian army for letting politicians use them. APC is a terrorist party. So these are some of the reactions. This person said, Niger journalism, I hail you. Which one is government sponsored? Not even allegedly government sponsored. We as a people have lost patriotism towards our dear country. What's the evidence that the attack was sponsored by government? APC will cause another civil war in Nigeria, and victim of the civil war shall be the people that brought the evil. Aggrieved People Congress in APC. Another person here said, I foresee a political alignment of all coalition opposition parties supporting President Tinubu before 2027. Then I foresee a political realignment of all coalition and opposition parties supporting President Tinubu before 2027. Then we will all understand the meaning of that unity logo on Jagaban's cap. Can you imagine? You are all free to argue with your key parts, but I'm behind President Tinubu government. So this man is saying that other parties are going to join. So somebody will just see this situation in Nigeria and go to support Tinubu. Now, another person said, Peter Obi once said that the problem in Labour Party was caused by the APC government. PDP said the same thing. And now ADC, wait, and you are saying the opposition parties don't have a brain of their own to manage their party crisis. The same set of people who want to fix Nigeria in 2 years. Wow. Another person said, didn't the little Nebuchadnezzar Nasiru do far worse thing to his real and imaginary political opponent when he was the governor of Kaduna State? APC is a terrorist organization. Niger politics learn from Ghana. Niger politics learn from Ghana. That's Nigerian politicians should learn from Ghana. So guys, I'm going to stop here. But let me know your take. You have heard from El-Rufai. You have heard from Dele Faroti. Let me know your take about what's happening in the Nigerian political space. And what's your take ahead of 2027 presidential election? People believe that Tinubu has already rigged the 2027 election. You have seen that the figures coming from INEC are questionable. And you have seen that Tinubu is giving more money to governors and also House of Assembly and all that. Recently, he said he wants to increase the salaries of senior civil servants. That's the president, the vice president, the House of Assembly, and the rest of them. All these things is to get their conscience. You know, the lawyers, the judiciary has already had their own fair share. Their salaries have been increased. They've got houses and all that after they ruled on Tinubu's presidential tribunal case. You know. And now see all what is happening. They don't want opposition to survive. Let me know your thoughts on all this in the comment section below. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell notification. Thank you.